What is up, guys, and welcome back to Mental Recode episode number 2, the show in which we delve into the inner workings of the brain, figuring out what makes us tick and how we can really reprogram ourselves to be the best versions of ourselves. In the last episode, I gave a quick overview of what the show is all about. So if you haven't seen that yet, check it out right here. And at the end of the last episode, I gave you guys a little exercise. I asked you to really note down, to check yourself over the course of at least a day, perhaps a week, and see how much of an average day you spent daydreaming, spent in your mind, not in the present. So for most people, that might have been all over the place, but there was actually a study done by Science Magazine that found that most people spend 46% of their day daydreaming. Now we're talking about waking hours. We're not talking about the time you sleep. Literally, the time you're awake, half the time you spend inside your head not doing anything. And I would dare say that when it's outside of a survey, outside of a study, that number is even higher. I would even dare say that most people spend 70 to 80% of their day inside their heads instead of doing the things they need to be doing in order to live the ideal life. And this is why I want to talk about presence in episode, because this is truly episode number 1. You could say the last one was episode number 0. Because the practice and concept of presence is both the most basic, yet the most fundamental and most important concept underlying everything in the spirituality realm. At least in my opinion, but also when you study many different religions and different practices, the practice of presence really underlies it all the way from Hinduism to the more strange out there concepts like Scientology. Everything is about presence. It's all about being in the moment and reclaiming the being here right now. Because the reason it's so important, I can give you 3 right now. First of all, a lot of you guys are probably entrepreneurs. You guys probably care about being productive, getting things done. Well, look here. If you're spending half your day daydreaming, if you're thinking about all the things that could be, you're not actually making them happen. So there might be all these little hacks of how you can maybe save a couple of seconds, save a couple of minutes, or optimize this, optimize that. But if you spend half your day doing nothing, then all these hacks won't get you anywhere. Because this is one of the main reasons why I'm such a big proponent of not cutting sleep. Many people say, don't sleep 8 hours or 7 hours, just sleep 5 hours and do more. Look, you don't need to save those 2 hours. What about focusing on the 8 hours that you spend daydreaming, right? So before you cut away your sleep, focus on really conquering the present moment. Another big aspect that presence has a huge effect on is relationships. You see, when we first get into relationships, whether it's marriages or just boyfriend girlfriend kind of thing, initially everything is able to, and this applies not just to relationships but also to experiences. When something is new and fresh, it has much stronger capability of capturing our attention. And as the new wears off, all of a sudden, it doesn't have the strong effect on keeping us in the present, right? Because we already know it. So when relationships go from new to old, like maybe we've been in the relationship for a couple of years, we stop being in the present and we start having problems. Good example is you have conversations and the other person not paying attention, right? So while you talk about something you're really passionate about, that you really care about, the other person is somewhere in their head thinking about something completely different. And as a result, you feel like, they don't care, or perhaps they're not able to pick up on the references you have, and all of a sudden you drift apart more and more and more because instead of living together in the present, you both live inside your own little worlds inside your heads. And then the third and last point is just the pure life experience and happiness, right? Because you cannot be happy when you live in the past. And essentially, when you're daydreaming, those 50% that these studies found is you're either living in the past or you're living in the future. And both of those are truly negative. And the reason is because if you're living in the past, then truly you're nostalgic. You're probably thinking about the way things used to be better, or perhaps some emotional thing that's still stuck with you, or you're upset about, why did this happen to me? So generally, it's a question of regret or nostalgia, both being negative sentiments. And if it's about the future, then you spend all this time dreaming and hoping things will change, but you're not actually fixing them in the present. So hopefully by this point, you will agree with me that it's worth your time and effort to actually, learn how to be more present, to really focus on this concept because it truly underlies every single part of our lives. And that's why it has been such an important focus in, as I said, in almost all world religions, in almost all philosophical practices. No matter where you look, presence is at the heart of it all. Yet very few of us have actually mastered this. And even I myself with practices for years, if you don't keep it up continuously, it's not something that you learn once and then have it forever. It's really a practice that you have to cultivate and keep inside your lifestyle. So I'm gonna give you 3 quick tools that you can use and quick practices that are, one, a quick fix, something to cultivate as a habit, and thirdly, a real deep dive of how you can really overcome a lot of these triggers that keep pulling you into the past. So let's get into the quick fix. And this really works within a heartbeat. It takes you maybe 5 seconds and you should be able to bring yourself back to the present. All you have to do, and it's very simple, and I just figured this out over time, is give your mind the command over your senses. And all you have to do is inside your mind, you can speak it if you're by yourself, but it might seem weird if you say this when you're with other people. You just say, I see, I hear, I smell, I feel, I taste. And then your mind, by this command, literally focuses on what's actually around you. Because you might, when you hear, let's say for example, you hear a song, right? And maybe that song triggers some memory in you and makes you sad. Now the song is here, that's a fact, right? But the sadness is not just floating in the air. That's something that's inside your mind. That's something that your mind has associated with that song. So when you give yourself the command, and initially before it's automated, you can even make the practice where you say okay, I see, and you quickly look around, different things you see. I hear, and you really focus, be quiet for a second and listen. What are the natural sounds that are there? What is actually there? And that way you realize what's actually there and what are the voices and sounds and whatever that your mind is projecting. And then you go through those all 5 senses, and literally within a few seconds to max 20 seconds, you should be able to really have that feeling for the present. And then really feel it, for a second, just keep it, hold it for as long as you can. And when you manage to hold it for a couple seconds, you keep going about what you're doing. Because all too often, we keep letting our minds drift, whether we're reading, we're working, we're with people, whatever it is. And that is a very simple task. Literally takes a few seconds to get yourself back in the moment. But again, if you have a really bad, inner presence culture, that's not gonna solve it. This is really just as a quick tool to get you back in the moment. If you want to cultivate presence on a small time investment level, perhaps 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, what I would recommend is that in the morning, perhaps at night, you essentially orient. These are orientation practices. You want to orient yourself based on the actual physical surroundings yourself in. So perhaps in the morning, as you get up, you look around, you perhaps choose something. Maybe there's a flower standing in your room, perhaps there's a painting or something. And all you have to do is really focus on that and describe it inside your mind. And one of the really important things about presence is to always keep your eyes open. You see, when you close your eyes, it's daydreaming. But if you're able to project something into the future with eyes open, those are what most people call, for example, auto-suggestion, or vision boarding and all that kind of stuff. It's okay to plan for the future, but do it with eyes open, because the moment you close your eyes, you're removing yourself from the present, removing yourself from reality. So when it comes to these orientation practices, it's all about really re-engaging yourself with your senses, because I think most of us, because of all that's floating around us, whether it's social media or all these impulses that are everywhere, right? We've really become desensitized. We really have a really bad feeling for actually, capturing all that's around us. So what you want to do 2 times a day, perhaps 3 times a day, just give yourself 2 minutes, 5 minutes each, and really zone in on capturing everything that's around you. And you don't have to get everything, but perhaps, again, focus on one object, right? So you find a painting, you describe it inside your mind's eye. Okay, this is what it looks like. You find all the different details, the different colors, and what you'll realize is that once you're actually in the present, you start noticing so much more. Because there's so many times when we walk through nature, we walk through events, with experiences, but we don't notice anything. Have you ever watched an amazing movie, but perhaps you had some emotional stuff going on, perhaps some troubles with the boyfriend, the girlfriend, and you basically couldn't capture anything, and the other people that were watching that were actually in the present said, wow, this was such an amazing movie, and you're like, oh, I didn't really get it. So your life experience will really change once you cultivate that sense of actually being in the present, being able to capture it all, right? So that is the second layer, and this will already take you way beyond most people, and perhaps you're able to reduce your daydreaming time from 50% perhaps to 20%, and that would already be a huge feat, right? But if you really want to master presence, it's not some quick hack, it's not some quick tool. What it actually really boils down to is really uncovering what it is that keeps bringing up these impulses. So what you want to be doing is that every time you catch yourself daydreaming, when we talk daydreaming, it's not always positive. Sometimes we think about the past, sometimes about the future. Regardless, every time you catch yourself, write down what it is that you thought of. What is it that you keep thinking about in terms of the past? Maybe it's some painful experience, some painful memory, or perhaps it's some dream that you have, but there's something twist and turn around. That's why you always keep thinking about it. So once you've written down, you really want to give yourself the time to actually sit down just by yourself, give yourself 30 minutes, an hour, and really dive into it and ask yourself, why is it? Why is it I keep thinking about this? Maybe there's some conflict that I haven't confronted yet. Perhaps it's some argument, maybe it's always about a person, right? Maybe a family member, maybe a significant other, maybe a friend, and there's something that you always keep thinking about. And if that's the case, then perhaps you really still have to confront it. So, and confrontation is not about fighting, it's just about talking about it, right? It's about actually acknowledging that there's something you're not happy with, there's something that is still bothering you, and you can either do that with yourself or with the other person. If you can, it's more effective if you do it with the other person. So instead of harboring these resentments, instead of harboring all these negative emotions, you actually talk to the person and talk about it in a calm, collected manner. Say like, what, this keeps coming up, that I keep thinking about this, blah blah blah, and you literally after maybe just opening your mouth, it might take 30 seconds, you will already feel better, and it will literally vanish from your mind. And if you don't want to do it with another person, you can do everything just by yourself. It just takes a creative sense of self-awareness where you actually dive into it, and whether it's just internally forgiving the other person, forgiving yourself, or perhaps realigning, where you say if it's a dream or future project, for example, and you keep dreaming of being XYZ, then perhaps you can make a plan of how you can actually make that truth. And then instead of feeling the need to keep dreaming about that far-fetched future, you live in the present, because that current future and that current present is leading you towards that former dream, that now future reality. So at the heart of it all is really coming more in touch with who you are and what makes you tick, and really uncovering what's happening inside your head. So we can always just the first tool, the quick fix, is kind of like pushing it all the way. Sometimes we need to do that, and we just push it away to get back into the present. But if something keeps coming back, it's really in your interest to take the time to dive into it. And I'm telling you, it's for most people, it's not comfortable. Most people they love avoiding problems, they love avoiding emotions, they love avoiding all the kind of messed up shit that we have inside ourselves. But it's never going to go away. And I've talked to people that in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and they still harbor some stuff from when they were 15 years old, from when they were 12 years old. So most of my audience is young. So if you're young, it's really in your interest to do these things early on, because it will truly unleash powers you can't even imagine. Because when we talk about presence, that is really what has allowed me to get so many things done, to really do multiple projects all at once. It's what's allowed me to keep calm and collect. I'm not saying I'm a master at stuff like relationships, but at the very least, almost all of the people that know me can vouch for the fact that I'm not stoic, but I'm able to really separate the information from the emotion, where I can look at something and say, what is actually going on, and what is my mind just projecting. Because all of us might look at 10 people might look at one event, and everyone will have their opinion about it, right? So, but what is actually the fact? What is actually the information when you strip away the emotion? right? And this is what really will allow us to grow as people, and this is what will allow us to live more harmoniously and live more peacefully. Because this was what I talked about in the last video, that how mental recode is really an essential part to dawn of man. Because when we talk about the future, and we talk about, whether it's wars breaking out or people corrupted, getting corrupted by power and all these different things, none of that negative stuff happens when people are truly in touch with themselves and when they don't have any messed up emotional stuff and baggage inside them. So it's really in our interest to have everybody, become their better self. Because we're humans aren't meant to be evil, humans aren't meant to be bad. We just all have made experience throughout our lives that shape us in certain ways. And the best way to remove this is to truly live in the present. Because in the present, there are no impulses or effects. In the present, there are no past experiences accessing us. In the present, there's literally only the moment. And once we're able to live in the moment, we'll be able to, cultivate better relationships, experience and truly live in just much more exciting times, because we actually feel and experience what's around us. And we're going to be able to accomplish such amazing creative feats, because imagine if you have twice the time of what everybody else has. Just think about the things you could do. So guys, I hope you take this to heart. I hope you apply some of these concepts I taught today, and let me know in the comments how it worked for you, if you enjoyed it, and what else you would want to learn about next. Either way, I'll see you guys next week with the next episode. Take care.